this is An0maly, and you're a hip hop artist,
Yes.
and you also do a lot of commentary. I'm not super familiar with your work, admittedly, but some people thought that we should chat because I guess apparently we're on opposite ends of the fence, but we have some things in common. And we both kind of have some cultural things in common as well. You are an actual musician. I am not. I play some music for fun. I do a fun little theme song for this show. I haven't been doing it as much recently because I've been dealing with some sinus things. And again, I'm not a great musician to begin with. It's all fun. So I've been a little not as active with it. But you are a real musician. But we have those kind of cultural interests in common as well. So why don't you give me a little bit of a skinny on what you're all about?
Absolutely. So I've been a hip hop artist for 6, 7, 8 years now, and I got these Bernie Sanders sandals right here. The Bernie sandals with his face with the gold grill on it. I made a song called the Bernie Sanders Trap Anthem because I supported Bernie during the primaries, and I thought he was a wrench in the system and really was going to shake things up. So I come from that background. I've always been left leaning activist into prison reform and stuff like that. And then I saw what happened to Bernie. I started paying attention to the media. That's when I got into news analysis. And since then, I think I'm at like 250 million views between YouTube and Facebook. And I started like that. And I realized that the media was doing the same thing they did to Bernie that they were doing to Trump. And I didn't even vote for Trump. I voted for Jill Stein. And I had very, very low expectations. But I feel like the bar was totally raised. And I guess people would say I'm a Trump supporter now. I feel like it has very negative stigma on it, but I see the positives in him. I'm a very optimistic person, and I'm very impressed with what he's doing. So, I get misinterpreted by all sides because I'm not a conservative, but a lot of conservatives like me. So, I get it from both sides, and I get very misunderstood. But that's kind of my background and why I got into it, just to try to get the truth out there a little more and a little more optimism as opposed to like fear-based, everyone's going to die if we don't get our way sort of journalism.
Well, when you say you're happy with what Trump is doing, what do you mean specifically?
I'm just impressed. I think he's the first politician who actually follows on what he was actually saying, as opposed to just kind of making a bunch of grandiose claims and doing the opposite behind closed doors. I don't think he's owned by lobbyists and corporations. Like if I was to take a meeting with Trump, I think I could actually accomplish things rather than say Obama or Bush. They have a whole agenda. Trump's such a loose, wrecking ball to the system where I think he's in desperate need of support, especially in the hip hop community and, maybe from the liberal side. So I think he's
got Kanye.
He's got Kanye. Kim Kardashian just recently, he pardoned, the woman that she wanted him to pardon within a week. Obama passed on it 3 times. One meeting. Trump's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. I'll pardon her. So it's like, I think he's a little underrated, even on the progressive side. I think he's breaking up the intelligence communities and exposing something we really would have never known. Well, I think we knew it, but a lot of the, regular people who don't really pay attention didn't know how severe it was. As someone like Glenn Greenwald would say, they kind of have a permanent power faction in Washington. He's exposing that, exposing the media. I think overall it's going to have a very positive impact on America and society.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. I would argue when it comes to specific policies, that's not necessarily the case. And I understand where you're coming from because I think that if you and I sat down and talked about the problems, we'd see eye to eye on a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of people, I'm a regular on the Jimmy Dore show. We have that portion of our audience that would agree with you 100%. They see the corruption in the system. They see the corruption of both parties. And their solution to that is a Trump. They think Trump is some rogue that's kind of going to break the system. While I understand how some people came to that conclusion, I completely disagree with that conclusion. And honestly, that's nothing new. People said the same thing when we had Reagan. They thought Reagan was going to be some rogue that was just going to burn the system down. That's why you had punk bands like Fear supporting Reagan. That ended up not being the case. Reagan was just an actor, but he was just kind of business as usual. I think Trump's the same thing here. I mean, he campaigned on non-interventionism. He hasn't followed through on that. I mean, he hasn't followed through on that as far as he's intervened in Syria. He campaigned as some outsider. All of his appointments say otherwise. I mean, it's the same kind of Washington insider nonsense we've always been used to with all of his appointments. He hasn't really delivered on any of his promises to working class people or to anyone who isn't the 1%. I mean, his tax bill is pretty much just a handout to the 1%. All of his policies, and please, like, jump in if you can point me to something, because
Totally.
the way I see it, all of his policies, every single one, are just Republican policies. They're just Republican policies. The difference between Trump and other Republicans is he doesn't have any subtlety. So is he unmasking some things in our society? Absolutely. So is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is doing it through policy and through fighting the machine. I think Trump is kind of doing it accidentally. I think in many ways he's just sort of a megalomaniac that just wants something fun on his resume. And he's unintentionally, you brought up the intelligence communities, and I'm with you on that. The intelligence communities don't like him. I would argue they don't like him because they're worried he's not going to continue the war machine as usual. The intelligence communities, they think in the economy of war, something that, and I'm assuming you're a peacenik guy. I'm a peacenik guy. I think that's something else we do have in common. Something you and I can't even fathom. These people see war as an economic opportunity. So they don't like Trump because they're worried he's going to say something knee-jerk and stupid that's going to hurt their cause. That's the only reason they don't like him.
I have to agree. First off, I want to say I know you're on the Jimmy Dore show, and I support it, and I think you guys do important work and really do, next level stuff that a lot of progressives and left-leaning people aren't doing. So I appreciate that. And I think you're totally right. I think that's exactly why the intelligence communities don't like him. And even at this point, this is the optimist in me. He overturned their secret $1 billion program in Syria. This was like a year and a half ago to fund the rebels. So although he has not been completely anti-interventionist, he hasn't left. And there are some things that even I was upset with. Tucker Carlson was upset with. A lot of people, New Age people, were not happy with. He actually has made a difference there because he overturned the rebel program. That was, a year or so ago. And after that, magically ISIS disappeared. Who would, it's like we have the world's biggest military. They don't have a Navy or an Air Force, but somehow they were all over the place. And he gets in, overturns that, and all of a sudden they disappear. And I think it's a chess game out there too, because there's a lot of countries that, albeit we're obviously not perfect, and I'm not happy with what we've done, but other people aren't perfect as well. And I think that's what a lot of peace activists don't understand, is how cold and cruel the world totally is, where it's going to be, unfortunately, I think, a slow roll out of this type of stuff. When it comes to his policies, like the taxes and stuff, me personally, I would have to see eye to eye with progressives there and say, you know what, I save $1,000, $2,000. I'm still not going to be the top 1%. I'm not really conservative when it's like, oh yeah, tax breaks. I get the whole jig. They make the money. They created the Federal Reserve. It's not really, they printed and buy it, and we're in trillions of dollars of debt. But I'm more like, psychological. And I see like the media mind control as such a major, major point, where I really do believe that they're almost brainwashing people to the point where you saw with Bernie Sanders, you see with Trump, every day on Facebook, Twitter, Google, New York Times, Washington Post, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, they all hate Trump supporters. They hate Trump. They hate progressives. It's like they own the narrative. Democrat, classic Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. It's like they're mind control agents. So I see him as breaking that paradigm, and people need to have a mental awakening more so than policy. I was never a policy guy for Bernie as well. I was not really a fan of his like more, progressive socialist style policies, because, I really think there needs to be a mental awakening. And no matter how much taxes people take in the education system and the health system, people have to take care of themselves. They have to, learn the right things. And it's like, until people have a mental and spiritual awakening, I don't think any amount of tax take and tax received like that, those type of stuff, to me, that's not what I'm concerned in. That's why I don't really mind, his
well, then what
policies.
did you like about Bernie?
I like that he was breaking the establishment, that he was different, a wrench in the system, and kind of the same thing. Like I really liked how following him, although he wasn't so vocal about it as Trump, he was exposing how fake the media really was. You know, a few mega corporations, and we really, you know, between Bernie and Trump, and that I love Bernie for, and I'll give him credit, is he exposed that. Like, people didn't realize, even say my mom, you know, she, until Trump said the media was fake, she didn't believe it. I told her, you know, 15 years ago the media was lying, until Trump said it. Oh, the media is lying. So he woke up that crowd. Bernie woke up the progressive crowd as to how fake the media really is. Like, every single day, Facebook is rigged, Twitter is rigged. You know, they rigged the superdelegate count. Every aspect of almost everything, they're forcing this fake narrative. Like, it's almost like total mind control. So that was my favorite aspect of Bernie, was he was exposing how crazy that really was. Like, they really did not want this guy to win, you know, Bernie Sanders. I feel like, personally, I followed every day the news. I think they cheated him every which way, in every, you know, from media to actual votes to super delegates. I mean, he totally didn't get a fair shake.
I agree with you. I agree. And I would say with Bernie, I mean, Bernie, there's a soundbite that I really, or a video clip rather, that was just so striking to me, where he just, I think a member of the press asked him about his hair, and asked him about, and he just said, like, he's like, we need a media that isn't just focused on gotcha question and nonsense, but is actually focused on policy and ideas. And people started cheering. And I just watched that, and I'm like, we're supposed to live in a country where the media holds politicians accountable. Here's a situation where it's the other way around, and justifiably so. So
Absolutely.
I mean, I think when it comes to media, you and I are on the same page. We live in a world of access journalism. We live in a world of hyperbole and sensationalism. We live in a world where I don't think any of these outlets, MSNBC, Fox News, or CNN, they shouldn't be called news outlets. They should be called PR outlets, because that's what they are. All of their advertising, these are just people buying favorable coverage. The oil and gas companies, they don't need to get the word out. People know that you need to put gasoline in your car so that it goes vroom. They don't need to get the word out. They're doing it so they can get favorable coverage. Same with the military. You think a general person watching cable news is going, man, I was gonna buy a bomb tomorrow. That's an impulse buy. They're not selling products. They're buying favorable coverage. We have an adamantly pro-war media because of who owns them. Jeff Bezos has a contract with the CIA. Up until recently, MSNBC was owned by General Electric. Now they're owned by Comcast. That's why good luck getting an honest report about net neutrality out of them. The media is totally corrupt and beyond saving, in my humble opinion. However, I would say somebody like a Bernie Sanders is fighting that because they truly want to stifle him. Somebody like Trump, I mean, Michelle Wolf said it best. The media loves Trump, and Trump loves them. Trump, when he thinks they're being mean to him, he says it, and he plays them like a fiddle. PR is something Trump knows. That is the one thing Trump is an expert in. That's why it's really dangerous when the only time the media praises Trump is when he bombs somebody. That's the only time he gets praised. It's quote unquote in that moment when he became presidential. Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, so please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.